Welcome to another exciting episode of Many Hats of Business, the podcast. I'm your host, Tanya Gordon, and I'm thrilled to have you with us today. On this podcast, we explore the realities of business and the many hats we have to wear. I'll be speaking to some fantastic business owners about their journey to where they are today, in the hope that they inspire you to go through the tough times so that you get to relish the rewards having your own business can bring. Before we jump in, a quick reminder to subscribe, rate and leave a review if you enjoy what you hear. Your support means the world to us and helps Many Hats of Business, the podcast, reach even more curious minds like yours. Alright, let's get started. Get ready to be entertained, informed and inspired. This is Many Hats of Business, the podcast. Welcome to this episode of Many Hats of Business, the podcast. Today, I'm joined by Suzanne Young, who I actually do know quite well, and I wanted to get on here. And I want to ask Suzanne straight away, why did you set up your own business?
I set up my own business because I was absolutely fed up to the back teeth, and I'm keeping this really polite, of working for other people who knew nothing and had values that were completely different to mine. So I registered my company in January 2020. So before the pandemic, before we knew what was coming, I registered my company. And at the time I was employed, but I was deeply unhappy. And this is like the third job in a row where I'd been deeply unhappy. I joined the company in June and I worked for a megalomaniac, and he was determined that whatever I said, he was going to undermine. So I had a role that had me go into suppliers and to people about timescales, and I'd go and do a visit and tell him I'd done a visit, and then he'd bring them up and say, just ignore whatever she said. I'm the one who makes the decisions. And he was paying me $70,000 a year to do nothing. And boy, was that messing with my mental health. So I started having really mature conversations with the guy who recruited me to say, look, this isn't working for me. I'm taking a salary and doing nothing for it. And I'm not the type of person who can sit with that comfortably at all. But also it's messing with my mental health. And so I'd started talking about how do I exit well. So I'd registered my company and I was sat in my desk and work, kind of going, what can I do with this company? Well, I'm a chartered project manager, so obviously project management was my thing, and is my thing. But how do I get that out? How do I sell it? You know, I'm potentially competing with big names. I'm a one-man band at this point, and what do I do with it? So I was starting to think about what I could offer, and what came up was things like spring cleaning, people's project management, going and doing that kind of like, take my 20 odd years experience and let me help you make this better. So I've always been about helping people be better. And then the pandemic hit and I'm like, oh, can you remember P&O letting go of all the staff and then being absolutely crucified in the press?
Yes.
I got an email that made them look good. So I got this email at 3:00 on a Thursday afternoon, and it said, I'm cancelling all the programs with immediate effect. I realise this will impact people, but I've got to protect the business. What? Well, what the hell does that mean? So I rang the HR woman and said, I think I've just been laid off, or am I being redeployed? And she went, I'll come back to you, Suzanne. She hadn't even seen this email.
Wow.
And we had a certification test the next day, right, with a regulator coming in to witness it. And had it not said with immediate effect, I would have still gone in the next day because that's who I am because of this test. And so anyway, she came back to me and she went, well, you've only been with the company 10 months, so you're not entitled to any redundancy pay. And I was like, okay, but we'll pay you 3 months in notice. And I thought, yeah, because you realise he's just dropped a massive planet, and I would have taken them for whatever I could have at that point. So now I've got 3 months' money, no job, pandemic's hitting. What the hell am I going to do? And my husband at the time worked in the NHS, and I passed it forward. I paid it forward. I texted him. I tried ringing him, he didn't answer. So I texted him and went, I've just lost my job. That is, as blunt as that. And he rang me up and he said, what? And I explained what had happened. And he said, look, the hospital's in crisis, in full-on panic mode. Can you come and help? So I went and worked in the NHS in a hospital during the pandemic with a background of engineering project management, and did project management for them. And there was a few things that occurred there. One was I worked for this most amazing woman, but I was a volunteer. But I worked for an amazing woman who really, really valued what I could bring. The second thing was I was a level of project management that the NHS couldn't afford. And I knew I had transferable skills, but I was able to apply them and revolutionise what kind of went on. And that really boosted my confidence. And I worked in an environment, and a hospital, the NHS is a toxic environment. It really is. It's so unpleasant in many ways, but I wasn't treated like that. I really, really enjoyed working in the NHS. And then from there, I went to set up PCR labs. I decommissioned PCR labs. Before I did that, I drove COVID tests around the county. I got to meet a lot of people, got to speak to a lot of people, and really started recognising my value. So I'd had 3 roles which had really knocked my confidence one after the other, not through my lack of ability, because I know what my ability is, but through toxic workplaces, competition when there didn't need to be, undermining, and I got to see a different side of what work could be, and I thought, that's what I want. So in all of this, I had my company, and I did some consultancy project management work in between working at the hospital, which kept the wool from the door a little bit. And I trained as a coach in 2002 with what was the UK College of Life Coaching, which doesn't exist anymore. But I'd never done anything with the coaching formally. So I thought, right, I really enjoy helping people. I'm really enjoying using my brain cells to tackle things differently. And I love coaching, and I've been coaching through the pandemic. I've been really picking a lot of people up, and if you go back to my Facebook, in the pandemic, you would see a lot of posts about here's reasons to be grateful today. I really kind of put stuff out there that were designed to help me mentally, but also to help others mentally. I'd gone through a period of high anxiety where I could barely leave the house, to working with a coach and feeling a load better. And I really changed where I was mentally and thought, this is what I want to do. I want to prevent people from having to go through the last 6 years that I went through. So I'm going to refresh my coaching training. And then that led on to hypnotherapy training. And I'm going to tackle the toxic workplace because, why not have a big ambition?
Because it's a big ambition, isn't it? From what I'm hearing, there's a lot of people that do start their own business because of toxic workplaces.
Yes. And so I'm quite passionate about this because I see a lot of people join the entrepreneurial space because they've had a guts full of the corporate space. But actually, we need the corporate, right? Our infrastructure is built around the corporate. All of those things we take for granted. So I want to help the corporates stop the brain drain. And I want to help people who are in corporate get the opportunities that we see as entrepreneurs to develop themselves. And I want to affect the receptionist day, right? Because I think the receptionist in an organisation is the one who is on the receiving end of everyone's frustration, right? They're the one who gets greeted with if somebody walks into work because they're not happy about being there. They're the one who gets the phone call or the walk-in customer who's frustrated because the person dealing with them's got an attitude. So I want to affect the receptionist's enjoyment of work. And the way to affect it is to change the whole culture. And the way to do that is to look at the root cause. So it goes back to the engineering. look at the root cause analysis of why people are behaving the way they're behaving in that corporate space. And typically it's because they're not confident. So I build confident leaders and it changes the colour of the workplace.
It's amazing as well, isn't it? And it's great that it's horrible that you went through what you had to go through, but in the experience you've gained from that, you're able to then hook back and improve other workplaces in a way that, had that been done at where you were, you wouldn't have had any of these issues, would you? So, you're really able to see the effect because you've felt it, haven't you?
Yeah, I've lived it completely. And, I'm doing a big event in the next few days. And to do that event, I've recruited a team of associate coaches to help me deliver stuff. And I was talking to, two of them spring to mind saying this, but one of them in particular went, and I was telling her about what I've just told you, about the vision, about how I want to change the workspace, because there's lots of people who leave their jobs that they really like because they don't like how they're having to work, jobs that they've wanted since they were 9 years old. And anyway, I spoke to this particular coach and she said to me, I wish I'd met you 7 years ago. And I get that a lot. I wish I'd met you 7 years ago. I wish I'd met you to help me build my confidence in the workplace.
That's something I want to touch on actually, because so we've got our own businesses. Now,
yes,
in the online space, there's you see a lot of people putting out there, obviously, about you can earn all of this crazy money. And you can. And they talks about passive income. It's kind of falsity, really, because there's almost no such thing, really, as passive income in the workplace, because to set it up in the first place is anything but passive, as we know. And I think sometimes people leave their roles because they're at their wit's end and they go into this area that they think will be perhaps easier than it ends up being, because, we do have a lot of hats to wear. That's why the business is called what it is. And I think people come out of employment without the knowledge of the hats that they've had nothing to do with. They'll be fantastic at their area and what they've done, and they may have an insight into various things. And interestingly, one of my friends, she came out of corporate and she was setting up a business. And she's ended up with her foot in two camps for quite a long time because she keeps doing contract work. But when she was focusing more on her business, she said, the social media stuff, well, I should just give that to someone and someone would go and sort it. I'd tell them what I wanted and it happened. And then all of a sudden, if you want to do that, you're paying through the nose to do it and you're not necessarily bringing in the money that allows that. And I think, I've been in business for a long time now, like 15 years, and I think it is fantastic for that freedom you get. But like you say, if you could help change their roles and their workplace to be better so that they can work in a way that suits them, a lot of people would be more than happy staying with their guaranteed money in a workplace, wouldn't they? And they could be far happier than they are.
Yeah, absolutely. So there is a whole load of false messaging right around. I turned 100,000 in 2 weeks, setting up my own company. Do you know what? They are like hen's teeth, those people. And they typically, in my experience, don't have depth of knowledge, right? Things like the courses I've gone on to learn how to do the marketing, because my products are good, right? My coaching, I trained 20 odd years ago. It's still there, that knowledge. And then I've refreshed it. I've got no qualms whatsoever about my coaching ability, my ability to do strategy, my ability to deliver and on the customer's experience. That absolutely no qualms. Oh my word, Harvard copyright saved my life. Right? And I used to do newsletters for guides and this, that, and everyone was like, oh, these are so funny, these are so good. Can't do copyright.
It's different when you're writing about your own thing.
Absolutely.
Because you're so attached to it and you're passionate about it, it just makes it so much harder.
You're so invested in it emotionally, your gremlins come up. I coach confident leaders, but I have got as many gremlins as anybody else. I just have more techniques of how to manage them. And, that whole, I'm uncomfortable doing that, so I'll do it tomorrow, and I'll do it tomorrow. And, 4 weeks have passed, because they passed really quick. And I don't think it's not any further forward. And I've spent thousands on how to do social media marketing, right? And really enjoyed the course. And it's yielded me nothing in terms of sales, because I'm still uncomfortable with it and I'm still not that good at it. And I'm someone who can honestly turn my hand to pretty much anything. But there are still things in this that there are some hats that just don't fit you. They don't suit you. They don't fit you. And the trick is to fail fast. To recognize that actually, do you know what? This is not my thing. So I need to find a different way of doing it. And a bit like your friend, I've been very fortunate that I've kept in an income stream for project management consultancy, which is a good, strong, solid income stream while I've grown my business. However, that meant I've been cash rich and time poor, and I have worked a lot of hours. And then, one of the things I coach around is self-care, because if you're looking after yourself, you have the energy to be high performing. And I have struggled with that because I've been juggling too many things. I've been wearing too many hats. And I reached a point where earlier this year I went, social media marketing, it's not my bag. It makes me feel a bit ick. And not that good, is it? So let's find somebody else to do it. And there was a couple of false starts. And then I know you've had Sean on your podcast already, because I listened to it. I've engaged with Sean, and I've engaged with Sean because I tried working with VAs, but actually I need an OBM, and I need an OBM who's going to manage upwards, and Sean is amazing at that. So yeah, I think my key message there is fail fast and recognize that I think as entrepreneurs, we put so much pressure on ourselves to do everything that actually do the things you're really good at and let the other things go. And you're going to discover, going from corporate to the entrepreneurial journey, aspects of the entrepreneurial stuff that you really, really like. So I found I really love creating programs and courses and templates and stuff like that. I really enjoy it. I really enjoy the creativeness of it. I really enjoy, because I'm an extrovert, I really enjoy doing lives. Now, if you'd ask me if I like my photo take, and the answer is no, but do a live and chat, and I'm all over it. I'm so quite comfortable to do the lives. Less so on LinkedIn, except I've got over that by practice, because again, some of these things you've just got to give them a go and give them a go repeatedly until they get comfortable. I had a Facebook group which I closed because it was just hard work. And recognize that you don't have to do, but like, it's not a cookie cutter. And the more you do that you're comfortable with, the better you're going to do it, and the more you're going to do it. So work out what you're comfortable with and what you're not comfortable with, and give the not comfortable with stuff to other people. And, there's a lot of people say, delegate as soon as you possibly can. Now, financially, I've been able to delegate quicker than maybe I could have done. I wish I'd done it a lot earlier. I wish I'd saved myself the thousands that I spent on social media marketing courses and software and stuff like that, and actually just delegated it to somebody else.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of points I want to make on that as well. And it's like you say, people spend a lot of money learning, and that takes time, and none of us have got time. In this day and age, we don't. And I think if there's no accountability or limited accountability within what it is you're buying, the percentages of finish rate on any of these courses is really quite low.
Yeah.
And I think some of it's self-awareness and knowing yourself, isn't it? And I think that's something that comes potentially throughout your journey. For example, with me, I'll buy things with the intentions of doing it, and I don't necessarily finish it because life situations change and you just don't do it. Where sometimes that more expensive route of getting it done for you actually works out cheaper in the long run, because it starts paying for itself quicker as well, doesn't it? If you're getting somebody to do some of the stuff for you, then you might actually start earning money from that. Whereas if you say, right, I'm going to do a course and it might take me 3 months, and then you've got to start doing it. Nowadays, they say there's like 27 touch points before someone buys from you. So if you're then at the end of a course or near the end of the course, start doing the thing consistently, then you might start bringing stuff in, but it takes a lot longer. And I think when you're doing it yourself, is something I know I struggle with, the consistency of putting it out can be very difficult. And I think I'm noticing there's a hell of a lot of people in business as well that are neurodiverse. And I think then they really struggle with the consistency. And a lot of them, I think, have ended up coming into being entrepreneurs because the corporate thing doesn't work so well for them if they're a square peg in a round hole. And so it's like with me, I'm terrible at making myself do things. Whereas if I'm using an OBM and they're saying, I need this information, we need to talk because I need to put this out, I'm going to have a much higher success rate in getting it done. So that was weird. I've not had that happen before, but Zoom just totally vanished. So hopefully it has recorded and we're fine. We'll carry on from now. So yeah, I think sometimes you can save the money and certainly the time in the long run by getting people to help you with things. But I'm a big advocate of learning the skills because you do get a more effective delegation with that. And like you say, you know, you did have a couple of false starts with the outsourcing side of things. And I think if you do have the skills yourself, which you had because you'd done the training, you were able to see that that wasn't being done as effectively as you'd have liked and then change to a different person to do it. Whereas if someone had come in and haven't taken the time to learn the skills themselves, it would be harder for them to know, depending on what the skill is. I mean, you can see if you're not bringing any money in from something, you know that it's probably not that effective. So I think there is an argument to do some of the training yourself, but I think you need to be definitely putting kind of a timeline on it of how much time you want to spend, because otherwise, you know, you're not going to start making any money from it. And ultimately, we are all in business because we do need to make money.
Yeah, I think you need to ask yourself a question around how much do I need to know to understand if this is being done well?
Yeah.
Because did I need a 12-week course on social media marketing? No. Could I have done like a workshop, a full day, and appreciated what needed to be done, which would have been like still probably 6 hours worth of understanding? That might have been better. I thoroughly enjoyed the course I did. But that's the point. I enjoyed it. It didn't give me the return on investment I was seeking. Now, I'm sure other people on the course did. The drop-off rate was massive, but like you said, the whole load of drop-off rate, and there's a whole lot of factors in the drop-off rate. I can post, I can understand, but it was less about understanding the social media marketing, and really my stumbling block is the copywriting and particularly the call to action. So there is kind of a question I think we should ask ourselves is, why am I doing this course and why am I doing it now? And then the next question is, and when do I expect it to pay me back? And why is it that date? Because I'm a massive fan of working out what's right for you. So recently there was a course that I was so tempted to go on because I could see the value of it, massive value, really liked the person delivering it, knew how good her knowledge was. And I was really, really tempted. And then I was like, actually, what am I going to get out of this course that I wouldn't get out of doing a one-day event with her? And actually, the one-day event is better money in that case for me. Now, there's a whole load of other things that at play, which is the cohort, the camaraderie, the accountability. You know, they're all valuable. But ultimately, again, if it's going to take you 12 weeks to get a level of knowledge before you can start implementing, is that the right return on investment? I'm a bigger fan of I can start implementing within a week. Now, it might still be a 12-week course, but I can start implementing and moving forward.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? Because at least you feel like you're making progress at the time. And then, there's a million options out there of what you can do, isn't it? And interestingly, I've had Kirsty on recently, so that episode is definitely out now. And she works a lot of one-to-one and does full strategy days with people. And it's that same thing of they go away with so much value from that day that, like, say, finding an hour a week for your recording on your 12-week course, for example, to watch it, but then you've still got to do the work. Whereas often, and people often have to kind of fluff it up a bit to fill out some of the time. So actually, often what you can do in a 12-week course, you can actually fit into a full day. And if that's the way you work, it's, your mind's on it. You're not going to have something come up and you're not going to be able to go to the odd session and you have to watch a recording. Actually, this full day of getting it done can be really effective, can't it, really?
Absolutely. Also, as a group, you can only go at the pace of the slowest person in the group. So you need to be realistic about how the group's created. So I've been on courses where someone has really held my progress back because they just couldn't grasp it. And that's not to be unkind. It's just about understanding where you are.
Yeah.
And I know I'm a really quick learner, so I'm much better in small groups where I can ask questions and we can all keep together. Larger groups, so what I've discovered is groups of 15 for me, just and bigger, don't really work.
Yeah.
Because I'm wanting to jump ahead, and I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a skill I've learned is to be really patient. But other people who aren't committed and who have the capability of being where we are but aren't committed really frustrate me. So again, I'm much better off in a small group, in a small container of time to learn what I need to learn and not have the fluffiness because, again, engineering background, I'm not that fluffy.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not that fluffy. I've, as you know, I'm doing I teach people how to blog to rank to be found on Google, and I've decided that there's so much because I don't hold back, which would be no surprise to people. I don't hold back, so you get everything. And when I was doing it online, it's a lot, and some people are able to take it and run with it, but then other people sit there and they're like, "Oh my God," and they can't then carry on, but they know it's important. And I started doing the full days with that, where in the morning we just deep dive into keyword research, and I'm keeping that really small so I can help everybody do it effectively for them. And then in the afternoon, after a lovely lunch, you've got this, 6 titles, which is 6 months worth of blog content ready, and we've got to write the blog. So in the afternoon, we're going to write one of them so that you go home knowing that you've got your titles going ahead and you know what you're doing because you've done one when you leave. And to add in that extra accountability, I've said I'm going to check the next blog people, right? Because I'm going to keep on at them to make sure they write the next blog, and I think it's that thing of just it. And from a delivery point of view, I'm going to get much more out of that myself because I know that people are going to get on and do it. And at the end of the day, when you're in business, you've got to do what works for you as well, because what's the point otherwise?
Absolutely. You've got to do what works for you. And this is the other trap that I think we all fall into, especially when you're starting out and you're not so sure, is there's so many people giving you conflicting bits of information or a little bit more, or this do it just like this way. And not only can it feel overwhelming, but you're always looking for the right answer and the right way to do it. And actually just doing something that suits you is going to get you much further forward, doing it consistently and doing it to suit you. So I spent 18 months going, I want to coach confidence and resilience in business owners. 18 months I spent on that in various forms and developed lots of products and great. And then went to a strategy event and realised that actually I just want to build competent leaders. And that's my passion is actually in corporate. That's not to say I don't work with entrepreneurs, I really do. And I help them be entrepreneurs. But I'd spent 18 months trying to pigeon my hole into something myself into something that actually wasn't really that easy for me. And ease makes it so much better. And, you know, it goes back to how well do you know yourself? Because if you know you're going to be uncomfortable on social media, delegate it. If you know you're going to be uncomfortable with tech, delegate it. Work out what you really want to do and put your energy there, because when you put your energy where you love it, it's dead easy.
Yeah, and that is so true, isn't it? And, you know, tech holds back so many of us in business. And I'm obviously fairly techy because I work with websites, but there's elements of stuff that it takes longer to learn. And, you know, and then you're relying on one tech and then that changes. And, you know, there's just a lot, and you can't keep on top of the ever-changing all of the different tech platforms if you're, you know, scheduling once a month or something like that. So, you know, I've got a finance background, and, you know, when you come to do things like year end, you do it once a year. So every year you're like, oh, I've got to remember what I'm doing. You know, it's that same thing of the practice. You don't get enough practice kind of when you're doing it just for yourself, and actually using someone that knows what they're doing, it is far more effective and a better use of your time. And I think it's one of those things they often forget how much, you know, this is what you charge for your thing. This is what you're going to pay for that. Well, could you be doing a paid service in the time it would take you to do that, to earn the money to pay for that? Yeah. Are you going to be happier? Yeah. Okay, well, let's do it.
Yeah. So I've got a cleaner and I've got a dog walker, because I can earn a lot more in the time that they're using, like their combined times. I can earn a lot more if I put my energies into my business than if I'm cleaning the house or walking my dogs. It's not to say I don't walk my dogs or clean my house, but I do, but not to the level that they do, the amount of hours they do a week. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves because we see people doing an awful lot of stuff and say, oh, this is easy. And you go, well, I'm not finding it easy. Now, I am the tech person in my family. You know, every family's got one. Suzanne, how do you do this? Suzanne, how do you do that? Oh, my goodness. The tech beat me as an entrepreneur. So I started off on Kartra because it's a CRM, because that's the one that everyone said was great. Oh my word, couldn't get my head around it at all. Just completely alien. And one of the
I hate Kartra.
Honestly, it was just a nightmare. I'm now with Funnel Sketchers. It's an absolute dream in comparison, and the support is brilliant. And I've got bite-sized videos, and it's still stressful because I've now built myself a limiting belief around I can't do the CRM. And actually, I can do the CRM. And so one of the things I say is just start small with the tech. Like, get somebody to help you. If you delegate one thing at the beginning, it's the tech. Or find yourself a buddy who can walk you through it. Because the best thing you can do is get a piece of paper and a pen, draw out the processes, and then get the tech to fit it.
Yeah.
And I know that from like doing engineering processes. But actually, I did it the wrong way around. I went to the tech and then just blew my mind.
That's amazing as well, isn't it? Like you say, you've got an engineering background. You work with processes, you know, and then you can still get drawn into doing something arse about face because everyone's, you know, talking a certain thing of use this tech, use this. And yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? And if you had drawn everything out how you wanted it, when you then looked at that tech, you would have probably known at the start that it doesn't necessarily do everything you want it to. And you kind of look further, don't you? It's, but I think, well, you said, didn't you? Like, you know, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. And I think actually that is on the whole journey because business should be simple, really. You know, you provide a product that's needed for a fair price with a good service, like that's what you need to do. And we do overcomplicate so much of it. And like you say, we're drawn into, oh, we've got to do it this way, we've got to do it that way. I've done a similar thing, and they talk about how you've got to niche. I don't want a niche. I've been saying from the start, I don't want a niche. I'm basically pretty much a business GP. I'm fine with that. You know, it's needed, and I don't really care. But it's taken me a long time to accept that.
Let's talk about niching for a second, right? So I've got a product called Niche Finder, which is a day's event to help you identify your niche and learn everything about it. But all that does is help you communicate to people in that niche. You're not going to turn away people who turn up and say, well, I work here, but I still want your product.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you're not in my niche, I'm not going to give it to you. That's just rubbish. That's just rubbish. All niching does is help you hone your message.
Yeah.
So my niche is highly competitive organisation, in the fact that the people in there are people who have know what they wanted to do since they were 9 years old. So they're accountants, they're lawyers, they're vets, they're engineers, they're in medical, because they're high achievers who have overachieved and they've always had a piece of paper to chase to give them their I'm on track. And then they've reached a point in their time where there's no more pieces of paper. All of a sudden, my confidence dropped because I haven't managed to get top marks to give me confidence, because that's what I've schooled myself in, is I give myself confidence because I've got an A star or a 9 or whatever the current thing is, right? That's my niche. Only because that's who I talk to. The people who've always been like hyper competitive and actually now need to understand that they don't need to be competitive, they just need to be collaborative and they can have a newfound freedom. But if a bus driver turned up tomorrow and said, Suzanne, I'm really struggling with my confidence, I am not going to turn them away.
Yeah.
Because they still need my product.
Which is interesting, isn't it? Because I think people, particularly new in their business journey, could miss that point, because niche is rammed down our throat a lot. And if you haven't got the experience, like, they find it more difficult because they're like, yeah, but you're not in my niche, you know. And it is that thing of, like you say, well, you know, in my other business, we're industrial engravers. Basically, we say the only thing we don't do is jewellery. So if sometimes someone wants a wallet done because it's Father's Day, if we can fit it in, we're going to do it. It's not an industrial product, but, you know, and it is that same thing, isn't it? That you've got to allow yourself that bit of leeway because it is your business, and you can allow yourself the leeway to be flexible. I think business needs to be flexible. And I think one of the problems with being taught this cookie cutter approach is there's no talk of flexible. And if you come from a background which is corporate, which also has no flexible, you don't pick up on that flexible thing. And that really makes it difficult to grow your business, because you have no flexibility because you didn't even know you should have.
So last year, I was doing an awful lot of work with hairdressers, beauticians, salon owners. Now, bearing in mind that last week, I went and had a makeup lesson because this is not my forte. However, I then thought, oh, have I fallen into a niche? Because everything I was helping them with was around time management, productivity, adaptability, responding to gaps in your diaries, all that kind of stuff. And I thought, oh, is this my niche? Had it literally just landed on my plate? And then I thought, well, if I spent 5 years in this environment, would I be satisfied? I thought, actually, no, that's not where I want to be. And again, didn't turn anyone away, ended up with some lovely clients, but it's not my niche. So I think we can get to kind of laser focused on niche. Niche helps you get your message in, but your message will appeal to other people. That doesn't mean you've got to turn them away.
No, and that is really interesting, isn't it? But sometimes, like, people do go so far into a niche. You know, if you were going, I work with mums, or I work with single dads, or, you know, whether they things, people start to, it turns off the other people sometimes if you go too, like you say, laser focused with it. And sometimes we're able to be pretty laser focused, aren't we?
So I really struggle with that particular bit, right? So remember, your niche is about helping you find the people. It's not about turning people off. And I really, really struggle because I haven't been successful to be a mum, right? It's not for the want of trying. It's not for the lack of desire, but it wasn't the card I was ever dealt. Busy mums in business, I help you do this. I'm looking for mums in business, I do this. And do you know what? It feels like a judgment every time I see it. Now, that's my issue. It feels like a judgment. But I noticed I'm switched off to a lot of people who are potentially very good. And actually, my organised, like where I coach, so I started with a group that was was for women, but with an X, because I am more than happy to have transgender women in my group. And then I spoke to someone who said, I am a transgender person. And actually this X thing has been introduced by cis women, and it doesn't speak to me. And I was like, okay, so what do you suggest? Why not just say people? Brilliant. I work with people who need confidence, but I'm not excluding anybody. So feedback I've had is it's far too broad. It's really not for me.
Yeah. And that's the thing, isn't it? You've had feedback from the people you're talking to that actually that's what the word they want to use. So you do need to use your client's language, don't you?
I also put out some market research on LinkedIn. So, professional person, I'm on LinkedIn. And most of the people I filled in the feedback were male. But you know what it was full of? Anxiety, lack of confidence, overwhelm. Yeah. And I was like, why am I talking to just women?
Yeah. And I think, again, it's going to become more of a problem for men as well. I've got sons, and I think is seeing what is pushed a lot in school now. They are really pushing the girls with things. And actually, I think we are going to end up with a lot more males. I can't even necessarily say men, because obviously mine are still kids and they're boys at the moment, but they will grow to be men at some point in their journey. They're going to seriously have confidence issues around the fact that they haven't been encouraged in the same way. And I mean, that's a whole different podcast, but there we go.
It is.
But the what I know you've given so much useful information to people already on this podcast, but from your background, obviously you're chartered in what you do. Is there some bit of information other than what the great advice you've already given that can really help people, you think, on their business journey if they're potentially quite early in their journey as well?
Yeah, I think there's something around, and this is a lesson that I didn't learn very quickly, and I see it, and I've got a particular friend who doesn't take action because she's always chasing the next
shiny object.
Well, no, it's actually it's not about shiny object. It's about validation. Yeah, and credibility. Oh, I've got to do this because that'll make me more credible. Actually, you're credible right now as you are in what you're offering, because you have that knowledge. The thing you're offering, you have enough knowledge around it to offer it. So in terms of qualifications and courses, do I need this? And do I need it now? Because 18 months ago, I was doing 4 courses and a full-time job and trying to do my business. And it was just ridiculous. But if I had asked myself, do I need this and do I need it now? I might have chosen differently. Also, there's a whole thing about formal marketing. Am I jumping on this because it's formal? And am I jumping on this because they're telling me they're never going to run it again? Well, do you know what? If the person telling me they're never going to run it again is doing a profitable product, they might not run it exactly the same, but they are going to run something.
Yeah. No, it was that I struggle with FOMO, and I know that it's something that neurodiverse people particularly struggle with. And if I didn't know that I was until recently, so I didn't realise. But I'm like, you tell me I've got to buy it by then because it's not coming out again. I am there. My credit card is at the ready. Luckily, sometimes it won't. You haven't got your credit card available, and it won't take your saved card details, and that saves money. So that's good. But it is that thing that if we think about it, if it's a profitable good course, they're going to run it again, or very similar. Right? Not just going to. Yeah. And invariably, by the time you get round to it, it's probably a better time. Like you said, 18 months ago, you were doing all of the things. The one thing that you probably didn't do it enough of, the one thing you wanted to do was work on your business. but it's the thing that always gets pushed to the bottom of the pile because you've paid money for that course, or, that's a full-time employment that you've got to, I've got to answer to people there. I've paid money for there, so I need to make this work. And that business piece, which is the whole thing you're supposed to be working on, go to the bottom of the pile because nobody's making you answer to yourself, because we don't. And if you've come out of a corporate background and you've had all these KPIs and you've got to answer to things for a certain time and you're going to have a review every 6 months or whenever, you've got people to answer to. In your own business, you haven't got anyone to answer to. And a lot of us, particularly as ND people, are terrible at making us answer to ourselves. We just don't do it.
So there's a lady called Gretchen Rubin, and she has a book, and this isn't one of my book recommendations because this is number 3 on the list. But she has a book called Better Than Before, and in it she talks about 4 tendencies that people fall into: obliger, upholder, questioner, or rebel. And listen to it on audio. It's really enlightening which you are. You can just go to her website and do the quiz, but then match your business growth and your business activity to whichever one you are. So I'm an obliger. I need people to hold me accountable. Some people are upholders and they'll just say, I'm going to do this and get on and do it. I need the accountability of somebody else. So that would be the kind of the thing that I wish I'd learned a year ago, is I need other people. Co-working sessions for me are really, really good. Just having somebody else seeing that I'm working really moves me on. And I started some co-working sessions with some business friends in Easter. I have done so much more on my business because of those 1 hour slot. Well, they're an hour and a half every day. And like today, nobody turned up. Yesterday, nobody turned up. But it's a time that I know I've got to work because I'm going to tell them what I did in that hour and a half.
Yeah. And, you are, because people that don't know you necessarily, but I'm going to tell them, you are one of the most hardworking people I know. And it's interesting, isn't it, to hear you say that you need that accountability, because, knowing you as I do, I would think you are like someone that is very good at holding yourself accountable. But I think with your background, you're very good at putting the tools in place to make it happen, aren't you? Like you say, you've got these co-working sessions in. And some people have a co-working session once a month or once a week. You have them every day because it makes it happen. And it's really interesting, isn't it, that when people, and we all do it, we think we're doing something to the best we can for ourselves. And then you're like, actually, you're doing it every day. So there's always more you can do as long as it serves you. And it's that thing that is going to make a difference to you. Whereas, of course, if you're doing it as part of like a course you've bought or a program you bought, it's not necessarily, it's designed for a group of people, a mass of people, as to how it works for them. So it might not be something that works well for you, the individual, and you've gone about and gone, right, okay, no, this is what I need and what works for me. I'm going to make that happen for myself. You haven't had to buy a course to do it.
No, and it works for me because I'm the host of that meeting. So I have to be there regardless.
Yeah. Yes. Someone else doesn't turn up, you've opened the meeting because that's your job.
Open the meeting. Now, sometimes, because we do this first thing in the morning, sometimes I'm opening the meeting with the camera off because I'm still in my underwear and just got out the shower and all sorts of stuff. But I open the meetings every day.
Yeah, which is really useful, isn't it? Like you say, if someone else opened the meeting and then they text to say, oh, I can't come, I can't open the meeting today, then you've let yourself off the hook, haven't you? Yeah, they've let you off the hook. You haven't had any accidental, I have left my camera on moments, have you? Like from what we all used to do in the Zoom days at the start where people got caught out.
Not on this, but at one point in 2021, we were talking about buying a static caravan, me and Richard, and I was being coached at the time. And I was on a Zoom call with my coach and we were talking about, should we do this? And it had a good business case to it and all the rest of it. And I said, I'll show you around the caravan if you like. And I took her around the caravan and I didn't realise Richard had got in the shower. It didn't land terribly well, was Richard.
At least it was a one-on-one call, not a group.
Me and my coach were howling. We thought, it really makes me chuckle even thinking about it now.
Sorry, Richard.
Yeah, he wasn't impressed.
Wow. That's brilliant.
It wasn't.
I'm so glad I asked. Now, we do, obviously, as you know, I say obviously, but no, if people have heard this more times, they do know. I'm a big advocate in learning, and I like to go deep with things anyway. So I like to leave people with a book recommendation, and I know you've got a couple because, you would have, because you're brilliant. And I'm sure they're good ones. So would you tell us your book recommendations, please?
Yeah, so they're kind of variations on the theme, I've realised. But the first one is Atomic Habits by James Clear, because, it goes back to what we were saying about consistency. Just keep doing a little bit every so often. And you'll get that compound effect and that snowball effect of things just growing and gathering momentum. So Atomic Habits, huge fan of it, massive fan of it. I've got it on Audible and listen to it about once a year because I just get more out of it every time. The other one is How to Manage Your Home by Dana K. White. It's actually called How to Manage Your Home Without Losing Your Mind. Now, one of my biggest failings is I am naturally massively untidy, and I could never work out how to stay on top of it. And then I started listening to a podcast called A Slob Comes Clean by Dana K. White, and then her book again to Audible, and it just gave me what effectively are atomic habits about keeping my house tidy and clean. And one of the things I realised in all of this and heard is people who are really untidy spend an awful lot more time tidying and cleaning than people who are tidy. And this was just like a huge sink of my hours. Like I just lost hours and hours and hours tidying the house because I don't like it untidy, but it was always untidy. And if I said to you that book transformed my life and made me much happier with myself, less ashamed of myself, gave me lots and lots of skills that I apply to my business about consistency, and 5-minute task done consistently really makes a difference. It's Atomic Habits again. That would be the second one I would recommend, which is a bit of a curveball for a business book, but applies because it freed up so much time.
And I think that's the good point, isn't it? Because when you do have your own business, the boundaries are blurred between life and business. And, especially if your office is at home, we need to be happy in our surroundings to be productive anyway. It makes such a difference, doesn't it, to our life and, just feeling better about it. Now, I've been to your house and I find it very hard to believe that you are this naturally messy person. So the book is obviously brilliant because, it works. I think, and I think I've even been to your house unannounced to a point. So,
Yeah.
I think that book is really effective. And Suzanne my house tomorrow, and she will see that I am actually a naturally messy person and do need this book in my life.
You also have like a lot of boys living at home, right? So you can blame them. I couldn't. It was just me.
And that is a difficult thing, actually, isn't it? When you've got no one to blame. You can blame the husband. Very messy.
Yeah.
My husband is very messy, so I can blame him. He's never managed to shut a drawer after he's used it.
I think that's a man thing. Sorry, men, but I just don't understand that.
So maybe they need to give us a lesson into why drawers are meant to be left open, and maybe it'll be really obvious once they've said it. They were like, yeah, makes sense.
No. There's a whole other. So once I got down the route of Delegation, I joined her membership, which she does with 2 other women. Dawn, who is the minimal mom, and Cassandra Larson, who is diagnosed with ADHD and is the clutter bug, she goes as. She identifies 4 different things, she defines 4 different styles of organisation. So she just they all kind of do something slightly different. And but she has one style, and I can never remember which is which is basically people need to see their stuff to remember they've got it. And so that is Richard, and I'm like the one who wants it all locked up away nice and tidy. But it's, again, another interesting one. All different podcasts around, like, going down that rabbit hole.
See, I had to have the biscuit cupboard shut because I could see them and I'm going to eat them.
Yeah.
So they're sabotaging me. Everyone in our house that leaves the doors open is sabotaging me.
Yeah, setting you up.
So, obviously, we've just gone out on a little limb there because why? That's the point of this. It's supposed to be natural. But I would just wanted to thank you so much for coming on, because I do think you've raised so many useful points for business owners. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anytime.
See you next time.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Many Hats of Business, the podcast. Your support means a lot to me. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with your business friends, as they may find it useful too. If you hit the follow button, you'll be first to know when a new episode lands. See you next time.